perfect first shot. So, she got in a wreck and bent the frame rail a little bit, so I'm going to straighten the frame rail out. And one day before it's all done, I'm going to box both insides of these front frame rails to try to stiffen it up, because the leaf spring is going to hook to the front of these frame rails.
So we pretty much just got one bent frame rail here. So I got the good frame rail chained to a bollard over here, and then the other one is hooked to my chain fall, and just massaging it a little bit as I have pressure on it to try to get rid of the memory of the metal and get it back straight. When using one of these disconnect tools, you want to push the fuel line in to help relieve pressure off of the fingers. We'll be doing away with this tank. We're just going to run a single 38-gallon Bronco tank in the back. No more switch to switch it over or anything like that. We'll actually end up having more fuel capacity with just the single tank in the back. This is the little fuel line clip that we're tapping through the frame and pushing out. My favorite way to remove these frame rivets is to cut a little X in it and just take an air chisel and knock them off with the air chisel.
So this is what I came up with, trying to keep the frame straight. I have it through that hole. I've welded 2 washers to it, either side of where I'm going to cut. I'll be cutting somewhere in here, somewhere in here. And as long as I end up with the strings back inside the middle of the washer, our frame should be straight. So I got these strings like perfect up in these washers. So whenever we weld it back together, they should be back in the middle of the washers. Well, sorry about that. I guess I wasn't recording. made that cut, that cut, that cut. Still haven't cut the top of the frame or the bottom of the frame. I made that cut and that cut. Now I'm about to make this one. Haven't done the other side of the frame, so you get to see that. Get to see me cut the whole thing.
Whenever I'm trying to make accurate marks on something, I like to use a scribe instead of a marker, pencil, or soapstone, or any of that kind of stuff. That they usually end up coming out with a wider line than the scribe. I don't know that you can get much thinner of a line than the scribe. But that way, when you're going to cut it, you're able to stay in the middle of your line a lot better than if you were to try to use, say, a marker that's going to make a lot wider of a line. Then it makes it a whole lot harder to be able to keep whatever you're cutting with in the middle of the line. So I'm using my Sawzall to freshen up these cuts just a little bit, especially where they come 90 degrees to each other. You don't completely make the corners touch with the angle grinder. There's still just a slightest little bit of metal still holding things together, so I'm just sticking the Sawzall in there. And basically they're rounded corners, and I'm squaring them off with the Sawzall, and also chopping the top and the bottom of the frame with the Sawzall. Oh yeah, that fits good. So how I got my overall length is I just measured the bolt holes for the bed bolts and measured the short bed that I have to see what the distance is, and that's how I figured out how to cut what amount out of the frame. It ended up coming out to, I believe, 16 inches on the dot is how much shorter a short bed is than a long bed. Anytime you're butt welding two pieces of metal together, you want to grind a 45 in there. It helps the heat get all the way through to the back side of the metal, and that way you know that you've welded all the way through the piece of metal. You don't want to partially weld it like halfway through a piece of metal, because it's not going to be near as strong as if you weld it all the way through, obviously. baby. You can't beat my bevels. Look at that. Man, that fits good. Alright, set my string lines back up. Hopefully this thing lines up. It all boils down to this. If I didn't make my cuts right and everything, then these string lines ain't gonna line up at all. So, here's for the moment of truth. So we're about a 1/16 of an inch off here, about the thickness of a Sawzall blade. So I was able to just run the Sawzall blade down through here and just kind of knock off just a little bit of material, and that allowed the frame rails to come back together that 1/16 or so of an inch.
maximum thickness and penetration. So anywhere over there that it did not penetrate completely through, like right through here, I ground a little bevel in it. I'm going to fill that in. Here where I filled in that hole, it didn't completely fill in, so I'm going to finish filling that in so it's full, and then weld out the bottom there. And then I'll check the underside of the frame rail there, and also on this side, make sure everywhere is the same thickness as the frame rail. So, I don't know. You can see here I welded this frame rail and then ground it completely flat. So there's almost no sign of it ever being shortened. So that's what we're going to do now.
So this is one of those sandpaper flap disc wheels that really smooths everything out, gets things a lot smoother. And then I also hit it with a DA sander to just try to knock down any little extra I can on there, get it as flat as possible. I want it to pretty much look like this never happened. I'm welding these at the top and the bottom of the frame rail to help alleviate any cracks starting at the top or the bottom of the frame rail. I'm going to fish plate it. It's going to be a bolt-in fish plate, just a little extra security in case something happens to crack, that you have an actual bolted plate holding everything together. This makes the end of this video. Thank you everybody for watching Florida Man Academy. We're actually getting somewhere. We're making something. We're not just done bolting stuff. Hopefully this is getting more exciting for you guys. I'm excited to see this thing to come together, and hopefully you guys are too. Please make sure you remember to like, subscribe, share, leave a comment. All these things really help my channel grow and possibly fund future projects. If I can make some money at this, then all of that money will go back into building more projects for you guys.